Christian Andersen, smelling of sunscreen and quota crushing. We talked a lot about what it takes to make a good AE, how it is to work in a fantastically rocket ship like Snowflake, how it was in early days in software sales, slinging Meltwater licenses, best practices, some tips on books, and much more. So tune in wherever you find podcast. Cheers. Welcome, Christian.
Thank you.
Country manager for Snowflake Denmark. Fresh from the airport, from President Club, smelling of sunscreen and quota attainment. How are you doing?
And a small sunburn. Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm a bit jet lagged, so I was up 3 a.m. this morning.
Yeah.
So it's a 12-hour time difference between Maui and here, right? So you can definitely feel that when you land again.
Yeah, I hear the tiniest violin playing for you after, spending...
I'm struggling here.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
How was President Club?
It was really amazing. 10-10 experience, I have to say. Snowflake really put out all the big cards, so it was a great experience. We were 350 qualifiers and the +1, so around 620 people, something like that. In Maui, in a really nice hotel, and a lot of nice activities and bonding, and I'm planning to go again. Let's put it like that.
Oh, nice. But you've gone a couple of times now, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And but this one was the best one so far.
Absolutely.
What was the best part about this President Club?
I mean, it probably sounds like a cliche, right? But I think it's really good to network with other people from around the world, because we have people flying in from America, obviously, EMEA, APAC, right? And usually I'm more confined to my little bubble here in Denmark. So it's really nice to talk to people in Asia and America and hear how they're doing things and get a little networking done. But then also, like, 25 degrees sunshine, nice pool, and nice food. Can't complain about that. So,
no, that sounds awesome. So when your team is asking you like how to get to President Club, what's your tips to manifest?
Well, I had most of my team with me, actually. We had a really good year last year. We were the #1 team in EMEA last year in Snowflake. So I won the Leadership of the Year award at our SCO. But that's really a team award, you can say, right? Because I'm a reflection of how the team are doing. So we were half the Danish team from last year were actually at club this year, which I think percentage-wise, without knowing, probably a record this year. So that was really nice to share that with the team.
Congratulations. So are you going to be able to replicate this year?
Yeah, I think we have a pretty good shot, actually. I mean, we have a really healthy business in Denmark by now. We have some truly amazing customers. I know everybody says that, but we really do. We have great partners who is really, working well with Snowflake. So I think we have set ourselves up to really do an amazing year again this year. We have done triple-digit growth numbers all years. Obviously the higher you get in revenue, the more tricky that's going to get to continue, right? But I think we're in a good projection right now to do that. And then we're also working on some new customers that will be quite significant. So, yeah.
That's awesome. You were your first account executive in Snowflake Denmark. How was it to step into that role then? And like, what was the first thing that was there any oh shit moments when you first started?
Multiple.
Anything that pops into mind?
Absolutely, yeah. So I came from Salesforce, where I worked before, right? Which is a big corporation, and then I got recruited by this company called Snowflake, and my first idea was, what kind of name is Snowflake, right? So to those wondering, Snowflake comes from the cloud. And we're a cloud business, right? So that's why Snowflake, and yeah.
That makes much more sense than MongoDB, for example.
So I joined, and it was back then it was basically data warehousing, right? And coming from Salesforce, where you work with CRM and marketing automation, I didn't have much knowledge about data warehouses, to say the least. Luckily, there was an SE who started at the same time as me. Henrik, he came from Oracle, and we called him Henrik the Oracle because he literally knew everything. So we were a nice duo, you can say. I knew nothing, he knew everything. So combined, we know okay. But the technical part of it obviously surprised me. Then when you come again, as I said before, from a huge corporation, I can't remember how many people were in Salesforce back then, but
25,000.
Yeah, something like that. And I was, I think it was employee number 900 in Snowflake. And just in comparison, 6 years ago, we're around 10,000 today, something like that. So it was a completely different setup we were working with, right? We were, thank God, using Salesforce as a CRM system, but it was not as organized, you can say, as a much more mature company, right? So it was a bit more, you can say, Wild West, perhaps, in the beginning. I had to reclaim some Danish accounts from my American colleagues, like Lego. Like, Lego is a Danish company, right?
Yeah. Are you sure?
I was pretty sure. And then, basically, my task was just to get as many meetings as possible. So my first 4 months, I think I had the record in EMEA for highest activity level, which I needed to have, right? Because I was basically I was hired to break into the Danish market. We didn't have any partners and we didn't have any customers. So that's a bit, uphill. And we didn't have any brand recognition. Nobody knew what Snowflake was, right? So you basically call someone and say, hey, I'm from Snowflake. And they're like, what is Snowflake? And I had to explain what we do, our value proposition, which I also had to learn, right? And then get the meetings. And then you can say in Denmark, there is a bit of a preference, perhaps, or at least historically for Microsoft. So many companies were just saying, we're going to go with whatever Microsoft has on the table. Or if they're an AWS shop, they're going to go with the product AWS has. So we kind of had to go in and say, we run on all the clouds. So we're able to offer you a better solution, in our opinion, at least, and then get that speaking time. So we had, me and Henrik, so many meetings in the beginning, basically just pitching Snowflake, right? And then after I started in May, we got our first customer on board in December. And from there, you can say the lawine started rolling, right?
The snowball was rolling.
The snowball was rolling to do the snow reference, right? Yeah. Then we got the second one in February, and then from there we just added the customers, right?
That's awesome.
And then when we got the customers on board, it became significantly easier, right? It also becomes easier to get partners, right? Because when I was trying to get partners in the beginning, you go to the partner and say, hey, do you want to partner with Snowflake? Yeah, great tech. Who's your customers? Well, nobody.
Many in America.
Yeah, many in America, right?
So like so your focus when you started, you were completely blank, basically, clean sheet.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Have you changed the way that you, like saying the first 90 days or the first, couple of months, that from you started from how someone that you're hiring in your teams now? Like,
yeah.
So what's the biggest difference, you think, from what you're expecting and want from a person that starts now versus what you did then?
Well, I mean, it's a completely different ballgame now, right? Because today we are the de facto best data platform out there, at least in our opinion, but I think in most of our customers' opinion as well, and the market's opinion. So when you start in Snowflake today, you have brand recognition, you have amazing partners on board that you don't need to spend time onboarding, right? Because I spent a lot of time actually getting partners on board because I know that was key. And what I did was basically try to see which partners was really good in Salesforce, and then if they also had a data department, then I could maybe get them to be a partner with Snowflake. So one of the first one I got to sign up was actually Netcompany, which is a pretty big one, obviously, right? And to this day, still is our biggest partner. So when you start in Snowflake today, it's completely different, right? We have two different sales roles in Snowflake. We have expansion, so they're sitting only with existing customers, and it's basically their job to get our customers to use the platform more and better, right? Drive new use cases and such. And then we have acquisition, which their job is basically to bring new customers on board.
Yeah. So like I think a lot of maybe not in Snowflake, but there's obviously a lot of salespeople that is starting with similar things that you had, and without the brand recognition, like you basically go into a meeting and you have to spend the first 10-15 minutes explaining why they should listen to you. Yeah. So what do you think, like, it would be a good advice for someone that is starting with a new patch in, a up-and-coming company that maybe doesn't have the brand recognition?
Well, what worked for me was activity level. I just made sure I had the highest activity level humanly possible, because that allowed me to practice my pitch, learn what works, what doesn't, and as you go on, you get sharper in your pitch, right? And then you move on to the next POC process, perhaps, and then you learn some things on the POC process. What can you do better? How can you affect it better? And so forth. So just having really high activity level. Take some meetings that I wouldn't necessarily take today, just to get better at doing what you do when you have those meetings, right? So I think that worked really well for me. Today, I would say it's a bit different, perhaps. I mean, if you're expansion, you typically have around 8 to 10 customers. And obviously, you have only meetings with them, right? If you're in acquisition, you have named accounts, so you don't have as many as I did back then, and it's a more selected process where you know exactly who you need to speak to, right?
But isn't that one of the main objections that you get from individual contributors, that my activity levels might not be as great as you, Mr. Boss.
Quality over quantity is something I've heard before.
I think we maybe have used that line ourselves.
I've used that myself multiple times.
Yeah, exactly. Just interesting how it shifts the further up the levels you go, and what you think is interesting.
No. I mean, I obviously agree to some extent, right? Because there is a difference in the quality level. So what I mean by high activity level is also just to get better yourself, right? But when you're at a different point, then you obviously need to be quality. You still need to have the level of activity every week that the company sets as a KPI. That's just always a good idea, right? But you want to make sure that the quality you do is well qualified before you take the meeting. So you make sure it's not a tire kicker that you're meeting with who's just interested to hear what the latest on Snowflake is, right? You need to know that there's a budget, a project, and so forth, right?
So how what is it that you're saying to your AEs that how to qualify a good deal? Not Snowflake specifically, maybe, but just what do you like to have in a process to make sure that you're, I feel confident when my AE is talking about this deal because it has these components in it.
Well, the first thing is pain. There needs to be a pain. If there's no pain, we're never gonna sell anything to anybody, right? There needs to be a pain. There needs to be some sort of budget allocated. Otherwise, we're just talking without, an end goal here. So some sort of budget allocated. And then we need to have access to the people actually deciding, so the decision makers in this process, preferably economic buyers as well. But first and the most important thing is the pain, right? Because we can have many meetings where they say, oh, this is great. All right, so what are you struggling with today? Nothing really, and works pretty well. Oh, this is never going to work then.
No. But a budget, I find sometimes that people don't know that they needed to set aside, if you're opening a new account and they might not know that they needed to set aside budget for this project. Either they had very little budget already allocated to some other vendor, or they're less mature, so they might have not come there yet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so there are basically two ways we can sell Snowflake. You either go in and you sell to something where they're building a new solution, or you're migrating away from something. If you're migrating away from something, it's easier to allocate a budget, because then you can say what's the cost on the legacy solution and what's going to be the cost to migrate and then run Snowflake as the new solution, right? And what are the benefits, right? But when you're building something new, there needs to be an allocated budget, right? You can't just say, I would like to do this predictive maintenance. Okay, but we have no budget for that. Oh, well, in that case, no, right? So that's something we check for quite early in the process.
And the economic buyer, it sounds like you're running a MEDD process there, but the economic buyer is what's your favorite way of getting in front of an economic buyer? Because sometimes I guess it depends on the size of the project if you're going to get...
Yeah. I mean, I think the most important is to be relevant, right? Never just get in front of them just to get in front of them. You need to bring something relevant, something that can help them with one of their issues. That goes back to the pains, right? The economic buyer must have some sort of pain or some sort of interest in doing this. Otherwise, it's going to be tough, right? But it's always good, or I would say we insist on meeting the economic buyer, because if you haven't met that person, there are multiple ways this can fail on the finish line, and I've experienced that firsthand many times, right? So, so that's definitely something that we strive to do.
Do you have a tactical favorite strategy to how to ask for? If let's say one of your people says that their champion or coach isn't setting up the meeting with the economic buyer, do you have a...
Well, then I would argue it's not a champion, right? So it's a great way to test the champion is to ask for a meeting with the economic buyer, and if they're not willing to do that or able to do that, it's probably more of a coach in reality, right? So that's a good way to test if it is an actual champion, because I think one of the blind spots we often have in sales is to think we have a champion, when in reality it's a coach or someone who's just friendly, right?
Yeah.
And you really need to make sure that it is a champion that you have in this case, someone who's selling internally, because at the end of the day, someone within the company who's selling for you, that's by far the most powerful thing you can have, right?
Yeah, and if they talk to the CFO, they don't want to maybe listen to a salesperson either. They want to listen to their internal stakeholder. Exactly. What's your big, do you have a opportunity or deal that you gone through with MEDD that if I wouldn't have used the MEDD here, I wouldn't have gotten as big of a deal, or this would have failed?
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure how specific I can go into specific deals, but...
you can say a company that I worked with that is having, you don't need to go...
Okay. So one of the last deals I did when I was in AE was within FinServ, and that was a high competitive deal with a very strong Microsoft house. who definitely had a preference for Microsoft. So they told me ahead of the POC that it's not enough that you guys win, you have to win big if you want this account, right? So like, okay. We did win big and then went into the negotiation, and I think the paper process was definitely something that helped me a lot to understand how that worked, because that was probably the most cumbersome paper process I ever gone through. I think I counted many documents that needed to be reviewed at the end of the day, right? And that's how it is when you're dealing with very regulated industries. And then getting access to the economic buyer, which we ended up getting at the end. The way I got that was I introduced him to our head of EMEA, and then we went on a call, and that actually made the deal go through in the end, that we got that FaceTime with the economic buyer, and he could have some, ease in his stomach that he was dealing with good people and a good product, and we were gonna be mutually invested in the success of this project. And now it's 4 years ago, and still a very happy customer, and has expanded their footprint significantly with us. So
I feel like paper process sometimes is like the one that people are. I mean, in MEDD, when it started, they didn't have the PE and paper process, and it's one of those things where even if you bought something before and you get a champion, that champion is maybe because they used the system in a previous company. Like, so they now got a new role, and they're like, oh, I want to get Snowflake in here.
Yeah.
But they have never bought in that new company.
No.
So then it's like, I think I know how to get this over the finish line, but they don't. So it's like paper process is like, if you want to forecast, and get the deal done, paper process is,
it's super important, right? And then to your point about the champions who bought previously, right? That's obviously super nice when you get those champions, but for the first 2-3 years, it was technically not possible to have those champions, right? Because we didn't have anybody who bought Snowflake previously in Denmark. So everyone had to be, you can say, a technical champion, someone who fell in love with the product, and someone who was willing to sell internally. I think the best salesperson I have in Snowflake, he doesn't work for Snowflake, he's a customer. He's just been on so many reference calls, right? Because he's absolutely in love with the tech. Yeah, really great guy. And he's just such a big advocate of Snowflake, right? And whenever he talks about Snowflake, that resonates so well with whoever customer or prospect he talks to, right?
Are you making sure that you're sending him like some chocolate every now and then?
We just sent him 2 bottles of wine the other day, actually.
Yes. Like, make sure that he keeps being happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. You've gone through a lot of different companies, or not a lot, but you were starting in Meltwater, then you were in Salesforce, now in Snowflake. Meltwater was maybe not so much MEDD focused.
No, it was more chaos.
Okay. But you did very well in Meltwater as well.
Yeah. I mean, it was a great company in many aspects, right? I think I learned a lot in Meltwater. So Meltwater is media surveillance. It was a pre-IPO company who really wanted to go IPO. I think they did eventually, right?
They did,
yes, right?
On the Oslo Stock Exchange, and then they went back private 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. So I got the job in Meltwater straight out of Copenhagen Business School. I finished my master's degree in business administration and communication.
How much did you learn from that degree that you are using today?
Not a whole lot, I suppose. I think if I were to go the direct way, I would be a translator or marketing person today, which I'm definitely not. So not a whole lot, right? I think what you learn in a master's degree or any bachelor degree is basically just to learn stuff and then pass on that information to other people. And that's essentially what you do in sales, right? You learn some complicated stuff, and then you try to pass it on to someone else so they understand it.
It's a certification to your future employee that you are able to take a lot of information and make sense of it in a short period of time.
Exactly. Yeah.
It feels like maybe there's better ways of doing that in the future. But anyway.
I finished my master's degree, and I'm like, okay, great. Now I need a job. I had some different job offers on the table. And then I went to this interview with Meltwater. It was quite the experience. I went there at 8 in the morning. Found out we were 20 people interviewing for what turned out to be 3 jobs. And I came in at 8 in the morning. There was like techno music blasting in the office. There was Red Bulls all over. I'm like, what is going on here? And then basically they would like make us compete against each other to see who was the strongest ones. And then at the end of the day, some people, moved on to the next round, and then I ended up moving on to the last round. And then I remember before they offered me the role, the 2 guys from Denmark and then a Swedish guy took me out to a cafe. And then again, I'm straight out of university here, right? No real job experience. And they sat like next to me, really close to me. And then the Swedish guy, he leans in and he says, "So Christian, if we're going to give you this job and you quit within 3 months, I'm gonna find out where you live, I'm gonna find you, and I'm gonna kill you, okay? And I'm like, okay, is this how it's supposed to be when you say yes to a job? But I did accept the job. It was the job title was International Sales and Management Trainee. And international and management, that sounds pretty amazing. I didn't know much about sales other than my time selling televisions in Foodtech, so I figured that part I can probably learn, right? But international and management, spot on. I'll do that. And then I started in Meltwater.
That's an interesting recruitment technique. But let's this elimination process that you know, like let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that's pretty interesting. You know, to have 20 people coming in, knowing that they didn't know that they were competing against each other, and then the survival of the fittest.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not sure if I agree with the "I'll kill you" part. I think it's fine. And also maybe this is different times. Did you get away with? Clearly, you did get away with those things, 15, 20 years ago, but now maybe not so much. This generation will probably not stand
I don't
for
think I would say that to anybody starting in Snowflake today, that I would kill them if they started within 3 months. I definitely wouldn't do that if HR is listening.
Yeah, that's good. Like the big disclaimer, don't tell people that you will kill them
Definitely don't do that.
within the 3 months.
No.
But, like, let's talk a little bit about recruitment. Because that's, in sales, it's very hard to find new business hunters, and that's 20 that became 3. I feel you can argue the semantics there, but it's a great way of finding out which 17 didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
So like, what in that process what was the good thing about that process that you remember? Is it any, like, if you would start your own company that obviously don't, in the beginning have your HR requirements that, a American big company like Snowflake has. Yeah. Would it be any of those things that you would take with you?
Yeah. So in the Meltwater case, right, we were 20 people competing for the jobs. I think they divided us into 2 groups of 10, and then they found the best from each group or something like that, right? And then, so when I ended up getting selected, I was, quite honored, right? Because I was, in any job application, there are multiple applicants, right? But you don't see them, so it's a bit abstract in some sense. Here I saw all the other 20 people, and you're like, okay, I just beat everybody here, right? So I'm super honored. And they gave me my job offer, and I'm like, are we missing a 0 here on the salary? It was a very low entry salary, right? But it was big dreams of commission, so forth. But because I was so honored actually to be one of the few selected, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this, right? Because I made it through the process of the 20 people, right? I'm one of the 3 selected. So even though it's a significantly lower salary than I expected, I'm going to do this, right? Because I made the cut.
Yeah.
So I think that really worked, right? In terms of getting people hyped about starting in Meltwater, and the 3 of us who started were pretty hyped. One lasted 2 months, the other one lasted 4 months, 4 months. So they didn't last that long, the 2 others, because it was a insanely high competitive work environment, to put it the least, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I went through the same process where we had this similar, and I have been reflecting about this now, years later, that you got to see your bosses, all of them, in person. You sat in a panel, and also the first question they asked when we all sat in the room, they said, every one of you are now going to go up and talk about something that you're passionate about. Yeah. Doesn't matter what it is, just whatever you find is passionate about. And I completely blanked and went for football winter training. Because if you've done football winter training hard enough, when you come out and can smell the grass, and the season is starting, that's glorious. Yeah. And apparently that storytelling, paid off. But but what do you remember? Which selection process they used for you in Denmark?
What I talked about?
Yeah, no, or like the 10-10. What did they ask you to do?
I think it was the same thing. We need to talk about something we were passionate about, so I had to think fast, and I chose to talk about being a Manchester City supporter, because I've been used to defending being a City supporter for so many times because they're like, you're a winning team, join, or oil money, blah blah. But I actually was a supporter before they got rich, so I have I'm pretty well adequate to talk about that part, right, with passion, right, because I really do love that club.
Yeah.
So I think I talked about that as far as I remember, and that obviously worked well.
Well, is there any as a meltwater? I sometimes says that I have post-traumatic meltwater disorder. I can still get the sweats from that time, but I'm very grateful for some of the traits that was instilled.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're currently using or like telling your team that they should use that you learned when you were in Meltwater?
I mean, Meltwater is essentially about activity levels, right? It's very KPI driven, right? Monthly targets. After a month, you reset the targets. You start all over, right? If you did 99%, okay, but not good enough, you get 0 commission, right? So it was very performance driven, and you definitely had to deliver. So I think even though it was probably a bit too much, it did learn you to have high activity levels. And when you cold call, which we did a lot in Meltwater, you learn that it's not personal with people saying no thank you or reject you or something that is not as nice as not no thank you. But you learn it's your job, right? And what you need to do is basically see if you can get them interested in a short amount of time, right? And if they reject you, okay, maybe move on to the next one. And I think that was a good learning experience, at least, because you had to do, as I remember, 25 calls a day or something like that. Probably more.
More.
Yeah, connects, I think it was. You had to speak with 25 people. Yeah, you have to speak with 25 people a day. New people every day, right? That amounts to quite a lot of people you talk to throughout a week, right? And you do that every week, right? And you were in the office from 8 to 5 minimum, not 8 minutes past. 5 minutes past 8 or 5 minutes to. I once left 5 minutes to 5 to play ping pong, and I got called back. That's 5 minutes left, Christian. Smile and dial.
Smile and dial.
Yeah. So that work ethic, I think, probably is the one that I carry today.
Yeah, I remember we had 70 in Norway. We had 70 dials per day, like pickup dials, and if you did 40 before lunch, you could cruise in after lunch. That was the breakdown. Yeah. And we saw that the Americans always had 100 to 120. We could not we didn't understand how they managed to get that amount of activity levels. It was just insane. And also it was many years ago. Like then you could call a person 3 times and they will call you back, and they were like, "You have called me 3 times. What's up?" Yeah. Whereas now, like, what is the touch points on cold calling alone? I think it's 8 times you need to call someone, and most, if you have like multi-channel approach, it's like 15 to 18 times. Yeah. So like when I talk to some people out there and they say, I don't feel comfortable. Like, it doesn't really matter what you're feeling comfortable about. Like, if you want to get through, you need to like, erase that comfort zone, which was, I think, that's probably the main thing that I'm taking. Yeah. Like I had a comfort zone professionally going into Meltwater, and they just lasered that.
Nuked it.
Nuked it.
That comfort zone that disappeared pretty fast after day 1.
Life happens outside your comfort zone, and Meltwater made sure that life happens a lot. Great school. I wouldn't do it again, but but I would also say I had fresh graduates coming into Salesforce and asking me, what should I do? Like, is this and when you come into a company like Salesforce and you've never done sales before, I don't think it's the best start either, because you're like, it's like Google or Facebook or now Snowflake. You can stumble your way into a pitch and after 15 seconds say Snowflake, and they were like, "Did you say Snowflake? Yeah. They're the best IPO of ever." And okay, tell me more. Like it's and you don't have that luxury in most companies. So if you want to like.
But I think most good salespeople have gone through being a BDR, an SDR, whatever they call them. But you need to go through that experience, right? You learn a lot. It's something that you can take with you as an AE, because a good AE needs to be able to prospect by themselves, right? They cannot be dependent on their in BDR. Let's call them BDR. They need to be able to do it themselves, right? And that skill is something you learn when you go into sales, right? So a lot of people ask me, yeah, I would like to go into sales, can I get the salary and do this? It's like, well, you don't just go into sales, right? You start from the bottom basically, right? And then you work your way up. That's how it goes, right?
Yeah, you have to go, you have to do your dog years.
Yeah,
you have to create, and also if you want to then go and have, become a country manager or whatever, you kind of have to have the credibility to say that I have done this, or at least it makes your life a lot easier when you can, look your AE in the eye and said like, well, tough. I know it's tough. I've done this. Like it's like let's do it together. Exactly. What's your favorite Meltwater war story? It usually is people usually have a couple.
There are so many. I mean, management. My favorite one. It's difficult to pick your favorite child in this case, right? I think it was. It was. I wanted to complain to HR about something, and naive as I was, I figured, HR is on the employee side here, right? So I wrote HR an email saying the things I was unhappy with. It wasn't a major thing, honestly. It's just something I wanted to get off my chest and talk with HR about. And I specifically wrote them, please don't contact my manager about this. And then I sent that before I left for work that day, and then I could see the emails just ping-ponging throughout the night to America, back again, da-da-da-da-da. And then the next morning, surely it ended up at my manager's place. So 8 in the morning when I went to work, I got called into his office, and I basically got scolded for contacting HR. Like, what kind of place is this? So, but it was the place where you do not contact HR. I'm not even sure, was there an HR actually, or was it just a bouncing email?
There was, when you started, I think there was an HR. It wasn't in the beginning. Yeah. What's the best Meltwater memory?
Best Meltwater. Okay, so that's when I got promoted to being a manager after 9 months, where I hit my individual target, which was incredibly difficult to do, by the way. So when you hit your target, you were so relieved, right? And I did it a couple of times, and I got promoted, and then I got a person under me. His name is Matthias. He actually still works for me today, so we kind of kept the same career progress. So he works in Snowflake today as a fantastic AE. So he started, his first sales was to work in Meltwater under me, and we had a mutual target. So even though I was a manager for one person, though, right, I still carried individual target. Though we had a team target, and the first 2 months I sold 100% of that team target, and then in the third month, which was the last month of his trial probation, we were missing 10,000 Danish crowns. So not a whole lot here, right?
Less than 1,000 euros.
Yes.
700 euros.
No, 1,300 euros.
1,300 euros. I shouldn't do public math. It's just.
I think you could think about the Swedish crown here.
Oh, that is. The Swedish pesetas. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So we were missing roughly 1,300 euros, and yes, we could do contract sizes that size. Incredibly enough, right? And he managed to sell media surveillance to Dr. Oetker because they were launching the new pizza burger, and they wanted to track how well the pizza burger did in the media. And so we did the absolutely smallest contract I will ever do in my career with Dr. Oetker for the pizza burger. But we were so happy. I mean, we've done $1 million deals since then. I don't think we were as happy as that 10,000 Danish crown deal we did with Dr. Oetker, because we reached our team target for the third month in a row. And yeah, we were just so excited, and then I left. I left for Salesforce. Yeah,
leaving a high.
Yeah.
But again, I look back, and there's so many things that it was pretty crazy in those years. I mean, I was at a wedding. Yeah, you were there as well with Truls.
I was there. Yeah, all the survivors.
Yeah, with the survivors. So I can't remember who coined that, but that was hilarious. Politically incorrect. But also how many things that they did really well from a startup scale-up perspective.
Yeah.
Like that team bonus and that individual bonus that made you feel that you were contributing, even if you only did a 700 or €1,000 deal, a 1,300 deal. It's and then they knew that if they did that, they had COGS cost sorted, right? So it's like it was in many ways a very, like, the foundation from a business perspective was very good on the KPI side. The values maybe were a little bit iffy. But like, kudos to Jörn and the team there that was like setting a really good, like, just the values, moro, enere, respect, becomes an acronym. Moro, fun, enere, number one, respect, and that acronym becomes mer, which means more. You know, like this is something that he sat down and like really thought of, and you know, like, and good thing about values, I also feel like, is you need to have a counterbalance to a value. Yeah. You know, like if it's what's Snowflake's values?
Well, you're putting me on the spot here, but customer success, trust, and I should really know this, right? I feel like we just changed them recently. So customer success, trust, and
you know, Salesforce ones is customer success, trust, innovation, and something else that I can't remember.
Yeah.
But the key thing is, you know, in all these big companies, they have these words, you know, like, and that's just what they are, you know, like these words. And if you go out and have a picnic, or when we were younger, go to the bar, and the person comes up to you and you're like, hey, Christian, you know, you can really trust me. I really care about customer success. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then you continue like, no. Customer success, Christian, innovation, trust. Yeah. Like, okay, yeah, I heard you the first time. I don't, you know, like now I'm feeling that you maybe don't really care about all these things.
Okay, so the way I feel about these things is that you can put everything you want on a piece of paper or on your wall or whatever, but it's how you act that defines what your true values are, right? We do put our customers first, and that's why that's the first thing I said, right? But I think the only way you can really say that is if you actually do it right. And we do that every day when we talk to our customers and make sure that they get the help that they need and they get the best use of the platform. And one of the things that we're really spending a lot of time on with our customers is actually cost optimization, which is a bit counterproductive, you can say, right? Because obviously we want our customers to spend as much on the platform as possible, but when we do cost optimization with them, they decrease their spend significantly, right? But we do that because it's what's best for their customers. So even though we lose revenue when we do that, it's still something that we spend a lot of time doing, and I'm happy to do it, right? Because we want our customers to have the most cost-efficient platform possible that drives the max value for them, right?
It's so in Snowflake's then, you know, a good value could be customer success over ARR. Like, you know, so you're like, there's a counterpoint to it. Like Meta has move fast and break things. You know, like you have, but and then Meltwater have moro, enere, and respect. You know, like you want you to be number one, but not with sharp elbows. Like if you
What is the first word you said? Moro?
Moro.
Oh, I thought that meant more.
No, moro is fun.
Really?
Yeah.
I never understood that.
Yeah, well, it's a problem with having Norwegian in a global company. Imagine what the Southeast Asians were thinking about that. Yeah. No, so mer is the acronym in the end that becomes more.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. Yeah. I mean, they probably should have more about their competitive nature. And I mean, so one story actually that I do come back with now is I went to Stockholm. I think that was the Nordic headquarter back then, right? And we have this Nordic manager back then. I think you know him as well, so no name mentioned, but he was high energy, to say the least, right? And when we got up there, the Danish team, that day, it was the last day of the month, and I hit my monthly target for the first time for any person to do that, I think in 9 months or 12 months, something like that. So quite the achievement, right? We obviously did not hit a country target or team target, but I hit my target, so I was obviously super happy, and the other people were happy for me, right? So we were after work at 5:30 or 6 or whatever, sitting having a beer, and we're like good energy, and then he just pops out and he says, "Hey, what's happening here?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I hit my my individual target this month for the first time in Denmark in a long time." He's like, "Okay, did you hit the team target?" He was like, "No." Then he was like, "Why the fuck are you smiling then?" All right.
Noted.
Noted. Thank you.
Thank you for crushing my happiness. Yeah. There's management should maybe have been part of the values.
Perhaps.
Yeah. No.
And actually, that is one of the major things that draw me to Snowflake when I started, because Snowflake had, when I started in 2019, a no asshole policy.
Okay, they literally had a no asshole.
At least the recruiter told me, but they say the no asshole policy. We don't like sharp elbows, and I was also at the time talking with other companies who definitely did not have that policy, to say the least. And that really resonated with me, right? Because at the end of the day, at your work, you're going to spend so much time there, right? You want to work with good people. You don't want to work with assholes, right? And you want people to treat you as well as you treat them, right? And I think that whole no asshole policy really resonated with me. I mean, Salesforce was the same. I think really great people there. I had a fantastic manager at the end.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I found out I really prefer that over that Meltwater culture, right? So that was one of the big draws for me, and when joining Snowflake back then, at least.
I think, like you're also, you might gain some things, but overall it's not net positive to have it like that.
No.
And today I don't think it's the same. I can't imagine that Meltwater is the same right now as it was back then, because I can't imagine any of the younger generations that I have interviewed in the last 5 years to stand for any of those things. It's just that we were not as mature and well versed in how things should be as this generation now is. They're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, this is not. No, I'm not doing that.
No,
like,
absolutely.
Goodbye. Thank you for your consideration, but I'll take one of the other jobs over here.
But that was the attrition rate was like, I think the average working time in Denmark was like 3 months. Ridiculously low, right?
Yeah, it was. My manager told me when I went into the room first day that he looked at the three of us and said, one of three will survive this. And you said earlier that you had the same rate. And in the end, I was there for 5.5 years.
That's crazy.
That is something.
You are surprisingly normal for a person who worked that long in Meltwater.
Thank you, I think. But it was in the end. I was also like, I didn't learn people's name unless they stayed for 6 months. It's like new guy, new girl.
Yeah.
It's like this. Yeah, great values. But that was also like that was a Nordic culture. Like whereas you alluded to some of the other crazy companies. I mean. They got bought by Cisco, right? The craziest of
AppDynamics.
AppDynamics.
The crazy of the craziness.
Yeah, that was. But usually when you hear it, it's like more. There was one the EMEA manager in AppDynamics tried to recruit.
Jeremy and Steven were the two guys. So I never worked for AppDynamics. I just want to disclose I went through an interview process with them where they flew me to London and played games with me.
Yeah, there was another guy that we know that went on a process there, and he didn't want to. He didn't want to work there, but he was saying like, I'm just gonna go and have a chat with them. Just maybe they will. Maybe I'll hit it off, and. The guy comes into the office to one of the big bosses, and he's like, "Tell me, why do you want to work here?" And our friend was like, "I'm not sure if I want to work here. Like, you guys have invited me here." He's like, and then it went downhill from there. Like, it was basically verbal abuse of why he's so stupid that he doesn't know that he wants to work. And like, okay, I guess we're just gonna, we don't need more than these 5 minutes. Thank you. Yeah. Have a great day. Yeah. But it's like it's pretty. Have you now you're working in a more mature global company, like, but what has you as a manager, what have you implemented anything of like how to incorporate good culture? Like, what is it that you're trying to do in your team to have a Danish culture as a country manager in an American global corporation?
Yes, I think one of the things we do well in Denmark compared to other countries, except Holland maybe, is that we're quite direct in our feedback. It can be, for other countries, other cultures, it can seem a bit too direct. I think we're quite good at giving direct feedback. At the end of the day, I think it's just more effective to give direct feedback, because then you know exactly what you're saying and you understand what you're being told, right? Obviously doing it in a nice way, right? Nobody needs to be an asshole about it, but give direct feedback and just be honest. I think that's one of the good things. And then keep each other to a high standard. That's one of the things our former CEO, Frank Slutman, talked about a lot, to set the bar high for yourself and keep each other accountable. And I think the part about keep each other accountable, make sure you own your own stuff, is really important, right? Because there are so many AEs, probably including myself at one point, who's been complaining, instead of just changing it yourself, right? Get things done. And I think that's something that we have been really good at in Denmark, to give each other that direct feedback, but also keep each other accountable and keep the bar high for how we do our job, right? And I think those three things are really working well for us.
As if you look back in your career, I feel like something that took me a little bit time to learn is that I wanted to be I want to be friendly, you know, like with friendly is fine. But I probably wanted to be friends as well. And it works to a certain, degree. But when you become a little bit bigger, like when we worked together, I think we were 3 people in the team. And you can be friends then. Yeah. When you're 30, no, it doesn't work. And when I look, you can be friendly, but you don't need to be, friends. And that took a long time for me to learn. And if I look back at my career, I also feel like the managers that you respected the most were the ones that were the hardest on you. Like not assholes. Like, why did you not hit team target? Yeah. That's asshole move. Yeah. But like, great, like I knew you could do this, but I expect you to do it next as well, because that's in your KPI. Like if you want to really build someone up, you need to push a little bit, or else it's not going to be respected.
But I think that's one of the tricky parts, right? I mean, we are relatively speaking still a fairly small office, right? 16 people in Denmark soon, 14 today. So we are a small, close-knit group, right? And I don't run the dictator style, right? So we are a friendly group and we talk nicely to each other, but sometimes at the end of the day, being the country manager who's ultimately responsible for how we do, sometimes we do need to have tough conversations, right? If certain things are not up to standard, right? And that can be a bit tough when you are ultimately friendly. I mean, everybody that I work with in Snowflake today, I really like, right, on a personal level. Yeah. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be working there. I wouldn't have hired them in the beginning, right? Because you want to work with people that you like, right? So it is tough to have those conversations.
I think you get bonus points in a big American corporation anytime you name drop Brené Brown, because she's just loved by everyone, especially American corporations, and she says, clear is kind and unclear is unkind. And I think that is it. But it's sometimes you kind of forget that because it could be uncomfortable, right? It can be there could be a friction where you're like, okay, I don't want to, like, but in big organizations it's also like, don't make each other look bad. Like I'll go to war for you if you've told me that your activity levels are shit. Yeah. But if if your activity levels are shit and you're saying that everything is fine, and I for some reason was busy, so I didn't check the dashboard before I went into a meeting with my boss, then you're making everyone look bad. So then it's like, that's not, maybe wouldn't be too happy about that.
No. I mean, I think one of the things that is also important as a leader is also to look at the big picture, not be blinded by numbers, right? Because I think the higher up you get in an organization, RVP level and so forth, you just look at the numbers, right? And an individual just becomes a number. And those numbers are all you look at, right? But I think in my role, I need to look at the persons. How are they doing? What are they doing, right? And then you can have the numbers as KPIs as well, and something that can help you determine if you're doing good. But at the end of the day, I think I do a more of a personal review of how people are doing, and then use the data as you can say back
it up. Yeah. Like let's have the data back up the story I'm telling.
Yeah. And then I think it's super important to have the back of your team, and I really do that. At least I hope my team feels that way, right? But I think it is extremely important to be that umbrella. You're really good at that, I think, when you're a manager, to be that umbrella from up top, because then shit flies down, right? And you need to have that umbrella in order to be able to do your job properly, right? If you don't have that umbrella as an AE, I think there's simply too much chaos that you need to work with, and that's not helpful, right? So I think that's really important.
That's actually one of the things that Jörn, back to Meltwater, like he taught me. He said that in order for a salesperson to sell and do well, they need to feel safe.
That's ironic.
It is, but there's a gap between the top dog and the middle management there. Yeah. But I believe that he is 100% right in that. Because it's like if you're feeling worried about getting different things, and again, like everything is, if you're clear about everything, it's like these are the expectations, and And why is it that you might not live up to those expectations? Is there something? How can I help you?
But I think at the end of the day, we also need to trust the people that we hire, because we hired them for a reason, right? We pay them a handsome salary, I would say, in sales in general, not in Snowflake, but just in general, right?
In general.
Also in Snowflake, by the way.
And by the way, if
anyone listening,
hiring 2 people.
No, but I mean, we hire people for a reason, right? We need to trust them. I don't think micromanagement is the way forward. Of course, we need to check how people are doing, right? But we need to put some trust in people, say they can do that job. And if then they don't do it, then we can have a conversation, right? But I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, right?
Yeah, yes, 100%. We don't need to... micromanagement is, I feel, a reflection of insecurity in the manager. And more
insecurity or too much time on your hand.
Yeah, this is also a good point. Like, do some work here. Have there been any projects or anything that you like? Because you have gone through the ranks now. Like you're starting as an AE, and now you're in management. Is it anything that you look back on and say like, okay, this was annoying as an AE, and I now understand why?
This was annoying as an AE, and I now understand why.
Like when you like looked at why your managers were doing certain things, or like.
Yeah, I mean, as an AE, when you would get hunted by your KPIs or not enough activity level, or you don't have a lot of sales qualified opportunities and stuff like that, I'm like, come on, give me a break. I know what I'm doing, right? This is gonna work out fine, right? And then it didn't, and they were completely right. And now that I have maybe a different perspective today, where I'm like, it is important to track those things, right? Because they are leading indicators or lagging indicators of how you're actually gonna do, right? So even though it's not 100%. A mirror of the truth in the future, it is a good reflection of actually how you're going to do, right? So I think, yeah.
Why do you think that it's such a friction there?
Because I think when you're an AE, you sometimes just want to do your thing, right? And you're in track because you have a different perspective. When you own your own business, you have a different perspective of what you're doing, and you know in your head at least how you're going to get from 0 to 100%, right? And that might not be reflected in some of the KPIs that you are to follow. And so when you look from a manager point of view, like, but you're supposed to do this many meetings, or you're supposed to have, if you don't have this many opportunities, you're probably not going to hit your target. And the AE is thinking, well, I have 3 opportunities. I'm going to close them all. That's 100%, buddy. All right, so I'm good. But the reality is, most of the time it's not right. So if you're too blinded and having your too few opportunities and they don't work out and you have nothing left, then you're not in a good place, right? And I think as a manager now, or a sales leader, I better understand that you need to follow the process a bit more, perhaps, right? And have that 3.5x pipeline, for example, right?
Because that's, pipe coverage depends obviously on where in the quarter it is, or what type of sales cycles you're doing. But like everyone is saying that 3x coverage. But I like it's interesting that everyone is having the same story. Like it's like I said the same, like just let me cook, let me cook, and I know what I'm doing. But clearly, sometimes you don't know what you're doing.
No,
and maybe is it maturity, or is it lack of enablement? Is it like you have to go through these years? What do you think? Like,
I think it's a combination, honestly. Probably, yeah, lack of maturity, gain more knowledge, but also I think when you do forecasting, there's a reason why you do forecasting, right? That's also to get other eyes on your deals, because when you have a deal, you oftentimes think this is, rock solid. I'm gonna close this, and it's gonna be such a great deal, blah blah blah, right? And then you have other people starting to poke holes in your cheese, and you're like, oh, I didn't even think about that, right? And I think that's probably one of the important things, right? That you get another perspective on what you're doing, because I think that's one of the biggest dangers we have in sales, and just being, blinded by our own potential success coming up, right? That you don't even see all the red flags that are right in front of you, right? That other people can see.
Yeah, it's the humbleness, I guess, as well, because sales is, you have to have a certain amount of unhealthy ego to survive, and that unhealthy ego is maybe then blinding you sometimes on what is actually on the line here. What's your favorite, like now when you're sitting and doing deal reviews, what's your favorite questions to ask to not poke holes, but like understand risk?
It's 2 things I would say. Like, what is the actual urgency here? Because we are forecasting at the end of the day, right? We want to have things in quarter most of the time, right? what is the actual urgency here? What is the compelling event? And we often invent compelling event or urgency, or the compelling event is actually our own compelling event, right? It's not even the customers, right? So if the compelling event is our own, it's not really a compelling event, is it? So that's definitely one of the big things. And then the different one is around the deal size, right? That's also quite important. So in Snowflake, we make a great deal about doing a sizing, because we don't want to oversell our customers and we don't want to undersell our customers. We actually want to win the consumption business, right? So we need to sell what they're actually going to consume. Now, that is obviously a bit tricky, right? Because if you do a 3-year contract, it's a bit difficult sometimes to predict what's going to happen in year 2 and 3, because we're also depending on partners implementing, or sometimes the customer do it themselves, right? But making sure that we size the deals right, and that we know when we are in the procurement process and we do the deal review, that we actually, know what kind of, number we're negotiating, right? I mean, a simple but very stupid story is one of the first customers I closed, they gave me a number that they wanted to buy from. I think it was 700,000. And I was like, yes, I'm home, baby. I'm home. This is great, right? They didn't specify the currency. So it wasn't 100,000 euros. So it was 100,000 Danish crowns, right? I was like, oh, that's very different. So making sure that you had, that was of course a stupid example, right? But making sure that you know what kind of deal you're negotiating, right? Because that can vary.
I a couple of things that I want to. Compelling event. Have you ever experienced a real compelling event?
Yeah.
When was that?
So we do experience that quite often when we basically have a burning platform. So a platform that need to migrate away from because support is ending. That happens in our business, right?
Support is ending.
Yeah, it's basically going out of life, right? That happens with some of the legacy platforms. So they need to be out by a certain point, or they need to migrate away from a platform in order not to renew on that, because then we need to renew for a whole new year, and that's going to cost them a lot of money, right? So that's a truly compelling event in this case, right? So we do have them in Snowflake. And other compelling events, if they have a deadline where they say we hired the partner to start working 1st of August, so we need to have a contract in place with our MSA by 1st of August, otherwise we cannot start, right? I would prefer the first compelling event, though.
I think, because I feel like the second part is, it's like the same with renewals. Everybody can renew for another month. Sure, if it's end of life, then it's, an end of support done. You can't. But I feel like that's a technological inflection point. Something is ending, unless there is technological inflection point, governmental inflection point, or potentially compliance, legal compliance. Yeah. If it's not that, okay, governmental, you're actually, your state will punish you because you're not doing the emission rates, and it costs you X every day you're not there.
Yeah,
great. Yeah. Or technological that you just mentioned, or compliance, GDPR. Great. But it's a big hammer coming. Anything else than that, it's just artificial, and it's something that has almost been built up as a thing for salespeople to trust. And we worked in marketing automation before, and we talked a lot about customer, because we work mostly with B2C. And we talked a lot about customer journeys. Yeah. And to be H&M need to be there when they want to buy new tank top.
Yeah.
But in B2B sales, we have it's a lot of the times the conversations is about how to push that, inflection point, and we should create a compelling event. And it's it feels like sometimes if you just would turn the B2C model on to B2B and map it more, okay, where are you in the buying process? Okay, you have 3 years until your current database needs to be shifted out. Okay, let's talk again in 1.5 years, because that's when you're ready. It's sometimes I feel like we're pushing us, square into a round hole.
Well, I feel like it helps, obviously, building a business case together with the customers, because at the end of the day, every time anyone buys any piece of technology is to make more money, right? Or save money, but that's also making more money in some sense, right? So when we build a business case and we can show them that this is going to be the ROI after 1 year, 2 years, and the longer you wait by starting with this, the longer it takes before you start making the money or saving the money, right? And then we can show, okay, so why wait another 1-2 months when you can actually start this process now, right? I know that's a bit of a weaker compelling event, because it's not the same as you need to be out of this platform by then, otherwise you're in for a whole new year, right? But I feel like that's pretty powerful as well, building that business case and actually showing them what the ROI is going to be.
But has a business case provided with from a tech vendor ever been negative?
Not to my knowledge, no. Not to my knowledge, no. No.
Yeah, so it's it's a little bit of that. If you have you make a emotional decision. You know, Snowflake is cool. I want Snowflake.
Yeah.
And also, it's great. You know, like, and here is the business case that Snowflake has.
But we actually do follow up on the business case if the customer wants, of course, right? To say that it was not just hot air that we threw out there, right? We actually follow up on them, or actually at least offer to follow up on the business case after a year, 1.5 years, so that we can actually show, because that's a big thing for us, that our customers can actually show, you know, the amount of money that they save by migrating to Snowflake.
Yeah. You're consumption based, but I guess you can't right size in current term. Like, so if you have a 3-year and you have consumption of 100 per year, 300 over the term, and after 1 year something happens, they sold part of the business or something. Can you then right size and say, actually, we need to have a decrease in ARR to 150, which is half of what we wanted from the first time?
No, we don't, and I suspect no one else does change the contract in mid-contract. What we do offer that is, I would say, quite unique and customer first is that we offer a rollover of credits. So if you signed a contract that, say, just for the example here, 300K over 3 years, and you consume 250 or 200, then the remaining, let's say, 100K that is left, you can actually carry that over to the new contract.
Okay.
Which is really, because we do recognize that it is difficult to, to predict consumption, right? So that is a mechanism that we offer, and that our customers are really positive about.
That's unique. How do you then, do you know how to, because the challenge with that is how you recognize the revenue, right?
We recognize revenue when it's been consumed, and I think that's another huge key factor in how we put our customers first, that when we report,
be careful. Be careful.
No, I think this is general knowledge, right?
Yeah.
When we report our numbers to Wall Street, we report what our customers have consumed.
Yeah.
That's our revenue, right?
Yeah.
So we don't see it as revenue until they actually consume it. So I can sign $1 million deal with a customer, but we don't recognize that $1 million until the customer has actually consumed it, right? Which I think is the most powerful initiative you can give anybody, to not oversell anybody. We're literally not interested in overselling anybody. We want to right size it and make sure that they're going to use what they bought.
How do you pay commissions then? Like, do you pay commissions on, because if I sell a deal for $1 million and then they consume 100,000, like I shouldn't get commission on more than 100,000.
So things are changing a bit, right? But as I said in the beginning, we have expansion AEs, and they are measured on consumption, what their customers consume.
Yeah.
And not what they sell actually, but what customers consume. And then we have the acquisition AEs. They're obviously measured on the size of the deal and how many deals they close.
Okay, so it depends. So the KPI is depending a little bit on, and then also I guess if it's an existing client or not existing, then it will be.
But I mean, I would never approve any acquisition AE overselling a customer on purpose or anything, right? There's always the chance, of course. But when we size deals, we always do it with the customer. So it's a mutual engagement here, right? And we try our best, obviously, right? And I think actually, honestly, without being too self-happy here, we're quite good at it, right? Because we've done it. I mean, we pioneered the consumption model basically in Snowflake, right? So we've been doing it now. I've been doing it for 6 years. So you get a lot of experience in doing these sizing exercises. And I think we're quite good at it now, which means that usually when our customer signs a 3-year deal, we hit it pretty spot on after the 3 years.
Yeah. It's just interesting because it's definitely something that people are struggling with. I mean, in Salesforce right now, there's a bunch of clients that are having Commerce Cloud, and they bought it a couple of years ago, and they had projections during COVID, bought a 5-year deal, and now they're back to normal. So there's no way that they will consume the amount of GMV that they forecasted, and Salesforce don't really have the same. They have locked in that ARR, right? So they don't want. They also only for the stocks, like in the stock market, only recognize it until it hits. But they have pre-booked other things. So it's if they take that out, it's not looking so good. So there's a lot of companies that is having a little bit of a problem with that. And also how are you educating the procurement teams then in this? Because since it's it's quite new for them, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely right. So if we go back the 6 years where I don't think consumption was fairly new, right? And I think especially Snowflake was, as I said before, one of the pioneers, right? So we would meet procurement. Oftentimes, or not sometimes, it would be procurement who wasn't well versed in buying cloud solutions. They would buy on-prem, so they didn't have a big understanding of what cloud actually is, and they wouldn't have a big understanding of consumption-based model either, right? So we would spend a lot of time educating procurement on how a business model actually works and how consumption is driven and so forth, and how that then resonates into the commercial model, right? And some got it, and some were struggling, which is completely fair, right? It is, if you're brand new to both cloud and consumption, it is a lot to take in, right? And if you spend the last 20 years buying on-premise hard drives, it's definitely something new that you need to get used to, right? But then I think so some procurement that we were talking with was probably struggling a little bit about finding out how to then negotiate when it's consumption-based, right? Because it is different than buying a piece of hardware or a license, right? So that was something that some procurements need to get adjusted to. And obviously some procurements, they caught it straight away and were razor sharp, but it really different from different companies.
So what do you say to, if you would say, give your procurement counterparts a bone here? Like, what is it that they should negotiate on, and how, what do you care about when you're as a software vendor? Obviously, it's crystal clear that you want to right size it.
Yeah.
But it's also like they have their KPIs often of saying like, I want to have X% discount, and and normally it's that economy of scale as well. So even if you want to right size it, you usually have a different cost if you buy for 100,000 and 100 million.
Yeah,
that's
of course. Yeah.
So how, like what is the different levers that Snowflake can give that makes sense for procurement to lean in on?
Well, the primary one is discount on the credit, right? So the primary cost driver in Snowflake is, we have two basically. It's storage, but that's roughly 5%. So typically, right, and then you have compute, which is translated into credit price, and the discount on the credit price is then based on the commitment you do with Snowflake, obviously, right? And so basically, what we're trying to do, just to make it very simple, right? We're basically the customer is renting a car from us. They want to drive from A to B, and then they need to basically negotiate the best price per gallon of gas, right? So that you can drive longer. And that's what we're doing here. We're not so if they come with a number for us and say we want to buy for, let's say, 100K, we're not negotiating the discount on the 100K. We're negotiating the discount on the credit price, and then depending on what that discount is, it's then you get more credits, obviously, right? And I think one of the big differences for me going from Salesforce, where you would throw 80% at someone, or 65 if they smile to you, right? Or I think a discount is something at 95% once, with your approval, by the way. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And in Snowflake, it's a very different discount structure, right? Because a list price is actually something that a lot of companies have, right? If you have a smaller company with lower data volumes, you can easily use our on-demand model, so you just pay as you go per month, but then you also pay list prices. But a list prices is actually fair, which is also the reason why our discounts then are not completely crazy. And that's something that a lot of procurement had a struggle, understanding why you're not giving me 80% discount.
Yeah.
I'm like, because that's not how we work, right? We have very structured discount brackets, and depending on how much you spend and how long your contract is, that's exactly where your discount is going to be.
Yeah. First of all, clear that you come just from Hawaii, President Club, high, using freedom units like gallon, like, okay, interesting.
Freedom units, yeah.
And I think that we had Ulrich here, is a SaaS consultant a couple of episodes ago, SaaS pricing consultant. He said like it's become a culture of discounting, and some of the products you can discount 100%, and it becomes this like monster of SKUs that where the discount is just like, like it's it's a tradition of discounting. And then, you know, like, and then if, you know, Microsoft is doing that, Salesforce is doing that, Oracle is doing that, SAP is doing that, and then Snowflake is coming with a new model and saying, yeah, you can get 5%, you know, like, then it's, okay, like, that's not the easiest, right, to get used to. Okay, makes...
but I think it's a testament of fair list prices, right? Because then you can say, the list price is fair if you get 80% discount. Probably not, right?
No. Like, one of the main things that I keep saying to my clients when I do the procurement consulting is that you don't benchmark from list price. No. You should benchmark from current pricing, and then you need to figure out what has happened during the term, good, bad, you know, like, are you increasing, decreasing? And then you can, you know, start to make a strategy out of that. But, you know, I had one conversation just the other day who said, we're NGO pricing, which is, you know,
I remember that,
.org that they had, and I think they're incorporated into the .com, but basically they have made a really good sale that NGOs are getting a better price. And he said, we have a fantastic discount, and he told me the discount, and I was like, I you know, again, I think we should, you know, how many years ago was this? It's like, it's like 5 years ago. Okay, and you're on 5-year contract? No, yearly contract. I'm like, okay. Have you had any increase during those? Yeah, sometimes. Okay, and they're like, but he didn't want to talk to me. Like, he felt like they were having things under control.
I mean, if he's happy with his discount, then.
But that's also the key, right? You know, like, who, you know, I was RVP in Salesforce, and when I quit, we were 89,000 people. You know, when I started, it was 17,000. And then it's not my money. Like, I don't care if I approve a 100% discount on you. Then one of my managers actually gave me a very good advice, because 1 year we missed target with like 8%. As, you know, 8% is nothing. And he said, this is great news, Sanders. Why is this great news? A little bit different strategy than, you know, previously known. No, but next year you just give 8% less discount on every deal that your team is sending your way. Just send it back. Every time you send it back, and then say, I think we should have 20% less discount here. And then you will be on 110%.
There you go.
Which is, you know, it's a very simple and smart way of looking at it, especially when you go higher up in their organization, because then you have so many deals. So, you know, be a little pain in the ass there, and, you know, everyone will be better off. Snowflake had a insane IPO, like, you know, the only IPO Warren Buffett has been involved in. You know, how many years were you in Snowflake before the IPO? 2?
No, 1 year and a few months. It was in September 2020, I believe, and I started in May 19.
Okay. How was that, like, experience? Tell, you know, like, I've never been in an IPO. Most people haven't. Like, how was it to the months before, the day before, the day after?
Well, I mean, when I started in Snowflake, obviously there were talks about going IPO at some point, but it was very far into the future. Then a few months after I started, we got a new CEO, Frank Slootman, and he was the previous CEO of ServiceNow. And so he done a few IPOs, so it's quite clear that this is the direction that we're heading now as a company, right? But when it's going to happen, you know, it's difficult to say, right? I mean, take our biggest competitor, Databricks, they're still not going IPO, right? So it can take some time, apparently. So a year after, I think it was in the summer months, there was starting to be talks about, now I think we're actually going to go IPO. And I mean, when you're a sales rep, you're not being told when it's going to happen, right? So I think we're being told like a few weeks before that. And then I think it was the day before Warren Buffett invested $500 million, I believe it was, something like that, like a big amount into Snowflake. And that was the first time he invested in a pre-IPO company, right? And obviously that created a lot of buzz in the market, and we had the IPO. I still remember that day quite clearly, because it was quite fun to see the whole company was gathered like online and watching the New York Stock Exchange, and we IPO'd at 220, I believe it was, and we ended at 220. Sorry, we started at 120, and it just kept going up, right? And there was obviously quite a lot of buzz about Snowflake, and it continued that buzz, right? So it was really fun to be around, because all of a sudden, when I talked to prospects or customers, they all of a sudden heard about Snowflake, right? Not from our technology, but because of the stock was very talked about. So that was fun to be a part of, absolutely.
How much do you make in your stocks at the time?
How much I made?
Yeah.
I mean, I was an early employee, right? So I would say a good amount. Yeah, because I got in early when it was a generous stock program, right? And then when I started, I don't think anybody had the wildest imagination we would IPO where we did.
No.
So that was definitely fun.
I won't say any number since you don't want to talk about it here. But I remember you saying that you got so much stocks that you can't afford to say no because you didn't, like, you know, when you were quitting and you're just putting in your resignation, like you was like, I said an insane amount and they gave it to me, which I thought was funny. But like, did you, like, after that, you know, how much it is from a personal perspective, like it must have given you a big leeway in your private financial life to have gotten like a pretty substantial bag of money.
Yeah, I mean, they were investing in 4 years, right? So this is 1 year in. So I knew I had to stay in the company for 3 years. So that's probably the biggest motivation I ever had, to not get fired for the next 3 years, which I obviously didn't do. But yeah, obviously, right? Then they invest, and then obviously, as any stock price goes, it goes up and down, and you can sell along the way, or you can keep some. But it's definitely given me some, you know, financial freedom that I otherwise probably wouldn't have if it was only my salary, you can say, right? And for many sales rep, chasing that IPO is the nirvana, right? That is what you want to do, unless you are very happy just working in a big corporate organization like Microsoft or Salesforce, and then make a good salary. But if you, as a rep or as an AE, really want to make the big money, you need to hit that pre-IPO, which is extremely difficult to do, right? Because it's difficult to predict who's going to make it big.
I think back in the days, it was 1 in 40 or something like that. I think it's even less now. You know, the IPO market has been basically dried out quite a bit. There's not a lot of things happening. No. And also the multipliers are lower than, you know, peak Snowflake days. Yeah. But did anything change for you, like, because I mean you had I remember that I had to approve payouts for you because, you know, if it hits over a certain amount, I can say that actually $25,000 then the manager has to approve that payout. You get a little, is this correct, kind of, you know? So you mean you had to have, you know, and that's what normal people in Denmark earn in a year, you know? So you know, like, that's significant for anyone. But to get, you know, from, you know, high earner to like get a big, did anything change for you in your private life mentally? Did you buy anything stupid? Did you think that you would feel differently? And then what happened?
Well, I got flagged for money laundering, but that was because I had big amounts coming in from a company called Snowflake, which did look like I was a drug dealer. And I was actually just in Colombia on vacation, so I understand why.
And this was just after the Danske Bank, the Danish bank, had been into big problems as well, so they were extra scrutiny.
Yeah, they were my bank, actually. So,
so they only did their job.
I think I got flagged for money laundering. Obviously, I did not do money laundering. But
to be clear,
I did not do that. But I think both my bank and Skat taxes flagged me. Just, you know, curious. Understandably, right? Did I change anything? No. I think I'm pretty grounded. I come from a very regular family. I grew up on a farm, right? A plantation, to be correct, apples and pears. So no, nothing really changed. I think that's one of the main feedback I get from my friends, that nothing has really changed. I mean, yeah, I drive a nice car, but and I live in a nice house in Gentofte, but okay, so yeah, so some things probably did change. I did live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Nørrebro before that.
Bronx.
Bronx, exactly, yeah. But no, I don't think anything changed. I think what I've done with most of the money is to invest it wisely into index fund, so I'm not as exposed to one specific stock as you could be if you have all your money in one stock. So kind of spread them out. looking retrospectively, I could probably have done that earlier, but and then I think for me now, it's honestly, I have 2 kids now, so it's more about, giving them a fun childhood, being able to go on vacation and not worry about many financial things. I think that's more important to me. And then if I can buy a Porsche one day, and if I decide to do it at least, then that's going to be nice. But that is not a practical car with 2 kids.
No, but it's a nice car. What type of Porsche would you want to get?
Well, I'm full electric now, so it will be a Taycan.
And it would be, okay.
Oh, yeah. I was very close to getting one, but then I ended up with the EQE, Mercedes EQE.
Yeah.
Instead, which is a terrific car, but then all the taxi companies decide to use that as well. So now I'm basically driving a taxi again.
But it's nice when you drive your friends around. It feels real good.
It does.
But you should go old school with a Porsche, like water injection, water cooling, like 911 in the 90s or early. Or if you really want to get a midlife crisis, go like 1969. Like that.
Yeah, but so as I am getting older and my body starts to feel the pain, I think I need an SUV, right, where I can just slide into it, right? And then I can fit into strollers in the back.
I think that you could reframe this and say that you need an old Porsche so you keep fit to get in and out. That's how I would sell it to my wife, at least. It's like to be a part. It's one very hard thing to pull off. There's obviously a lot of luck involved and all those jazz. But would you try to chase another IPO? Like when you're done with your Snowflake chapter, which might be in another 10, 15 years, but like when you're done with that chapter, would you want to like start your own thing? Or would you want to like try to chase another IPO rocket? Because now, like one of the main things that every salesperson are motivated by is money. Because if they wouldn't be motivated by money, they would be in marketing. Maybe. Maybe. At least I don't want to hire a salesperson who says that money doesn't mean anything to them when they're young. Then I would be worried. There's what kind of psychopath are you to inflict so much pain on yourself not to do this? So when that isn't as big of a motivator, like what would you want to do? Would you want to go on the same ride again, or?
No, I probably wouldn't pick exactly the same ride because it was a very, very, very tough ride in the beginning, right? Like a really hardcore grinding, and I think that's probably a bit more of a young man's game. Not to say I'm too old, right? But no, probably wouldn't do the same. But to be perfectly honest, I haven't really given it a lot of thought because I'm really happy working in Snowflake. I have an amazing job, an amazing team. I take a lot of personal pride in what we built in Denmark. I want to look over the team in the office we have today. So it's like, if you're happily married, you're not thinking about what your next wife is going to look like, right? And I guess that's how I feel at the moment with Snowflake.
Such a Danish way of putting it. Love it. No, that makes perfect sense. What would your advice be for younger A's? Because one of the most simple way of getting rich is to join Snowflake and make sure that you are doing well as an AE and just be there for a long enough time, get some stock options maybe, if you're the top performer a year, then you get a little bit usually, or take the management path. So what would you advise?
I would probably say if you're chasing IPOs, that's a risky game, right? I have a few friends in sales that have done that and haven't gotten that IPO, right? Because it is really difficult to hit. And you can join a company that really is prospected to be the next big thing, and then it's not, right? And then it's on to the next thing, but then you just spend 2 years there, 1 year there, whatever, right? So I would say look for a company where you have the best chance at hitting your OTE. Don't get blinded by high base salary, because usually that could also be an indication that the OTE is not in the range for you. So find a place where you have the best chance to hit your targets, because hitting your targets will also make you advance into the next stage, whatever that might be. If you want to be a global account manager, or if you want to go into management, or whatever it might be, the most important thing is that you hit your targets, right? So find a place where you can actually do that. And whether that's in a small startup, there are great options, right? I have some friends now who have started, like, but they're covering the Nordics basically, right? That sounds like a lot of fun. Also a lot of traveling, right? So you need to have the ability to do that, right? I can't do that now with 2 kids. That wouldn't work, right? So you need to find a place where, the work-life balance is basically working with you, what you need to do at the moment, right? And then also where you can see yourself hitting your quotas, where you're not just, because I think many people join one of the big corporations, and it's really a gamble if you're set up for success or not, right? Because I know many of the big companies, I think even Salesforce, they have McKinsey make reports that you need to have this many reps in order to sell this much, and then they calculate that 50% or 60% are never going to hit that target.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the software model, right?
So it's not on Salesforce, but in general, right?
Yeah, so you have, and I mean, Snowflake has the same, right? It's like, we want to grow X amount, and this is top line. It's like, so we want to grow X percent, probably like 15 to 25%, I'm guessing, since you're getting a little bit more mature. And then, okay, how can we make sure that we're going to get to that? Oh, well, we're going to increase on every level down, a couple of percentage. So, if X percent just missed, I think it was like 65, 67% of AEs in software as a service didn't hit their targets last year. And then that's just by design.
By design,
So,
and I think also that just recently, right, a lot of the big companies have had massive layoffs. I mean, Salesforce, Microsoft, they're firing salespeople left and right, because they're overhired.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that we in Snowflake have done really well. We haven't had any layoffs at any point, right? We have hired so that people still hit their quotas and are happy. And I don't know what the attrition rate is in Snowflake, but I imagine it's fairly low because you are in a good place and you can hit your quota. Everybody has a good chance to do it, right? But I don't think that's not the case in any other company, right? So really make sure that you do your due diligence about the company that you're joining and also the manager that you're going to be reporting to, right? Because a manager can make your life happy, but he can also make it, or she can make it quite miserable.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Christ.
And I mean, when you're interviewing, ask to have a chat with other AEs. I think that's.
So what I would do is I would reach out proactively myself to them, because if you ask to talk to other AEs, they're gonna put you in contact with the happy ones who just hit their quota, right? It's like asking for a reference call, basically.
Yeah.
With another happy customer, right? But I would do it myself. Simply reach out proactively and ask, hey, how is it working here, right?
Yeah.
I'm in the interview process. Maybe reach out to someone in a different country, whatever, so you get an actual feel about what it is to work there, right?
Yeah, because then and if they say let's jump on a call, then you know that it's gonna be bad. No one won't have anything in written.
Exactly.
But I think that one of the learnings that not only on this, but in general, like as a founder and starting my own business, is that it's so easy to take the first reference or the first recommendation for granted, and instead, like, you should focus and you spend some time on like double and triple checking everything. Like, you say that you're the best accountant here. Okay, who else are we talking with? Is it or you say like this is the best ad agency? Okay, who else are we talking with? Just to have a benchmark.
Yeah.
And I found there's a principle called the secretary principle, maybe something like that. And it's basically you when you're hiring one person, like a secretary, you decide how many you're going to interview up top front. Okay, so you're going to interview 10 people. And the first 3 or 4 is the baseline. So you're not going to hire those no matter what, even if they're the best.
Okay.
And then you take the average on what you're scoring, so and in that baseline. And whoever is the next person that is scoring higher than the baseline, you hire that person straight away. Because after that, you're like significantly less likely to find someone that is better. You're just wasting time. So it might be like, okay, I'm interviewing 10 people, I have a baseline. The 5th person, it wasn't better. The 6th person wasn't better. The 7th person was better than baseline. That's the person we're hiring. Yeah. And we stop there, or else it's going to be... but unfortunately, sometimes also you need much more than 10. Like in a software salesperson in Denmark, you might have to interview 30, 40 people, like to find the best.
Yeah, because you want to make sure you find the right candidate, right? Everybody knows that if you hire the wrong candidate, it's a costly adventure. Not just salary-wise, but lost potential revenue or unhappy clients, or so you gotta make sure that you find the right one. And I'm happy to say that everyone I hired so far is still here. So
that's a good testament, both
that's a good testament,
for your hiring skills and also you as a manager, because I mean people do quit often because of their managers.
Yeah.
What like there's a lot of AI talk in general, also with salespeople and how I got a sales call from an AI agent the other day. It was pretty interesting. It was actually pretty good. But yeah, it was AIAE, but it was more of like a screening call. But it was good. Like it was.
Right. So we're going out of business, basically.
I think for some things, like this was a screening call to like check, like my references and blah blah. So it did that perfectly fine. But it's a matter of time. I think like that. Some of these, I think people want to have interpersonal,
of course.
But there's some tasks that can be done. Like, is there anything that Snowflake is working on that is like that is a cool AI thing that you're noticed or?
Well, we're all about AI, right? That's one of the major shifts compared to 6 years ago when we were a data warehouse company. We don't even talk about that anymore, right? So we have a new CEO coming in, Sridhar. Was that a year ago? And he basically flipped the company into being revolving around AI, basically, right? AI and ML. So that's one of the big shifts that we're doing right now, especially around Cortex, for example. So you can build agents on Snowflake. And I think the really cool thing about us shifting more into AI is that we already have the data in Snowflake. And so you can't do any AI without the data, right? But since you already have the data in Snowflake, then applying the AI on top of that is much easier than taking your data and then moving it to the AI platform, which was done maybe previously, right? So I think Snowflake has a big advantage in the AI space because we are so heavy on the data space already and has been used for analytical purposes for quite a while, right? And now we're going into AI, we're going into Postgres, a lot of really exciting ventures that we're doing.
What's the best use case if a Snowflake client is wanting to start with one AI use case? What would that be in your opinion?
Best AI use case. I mean, one of the traditional ones that we have is around predictive maintenance, where you are basically predicting when a big machine is going to fail or what component is going to fail before it's going to fail, and then that company can save a lot of money by repairing it before it actually breaks down, right? That's one of the traditional big ones we have. Other than that, I think what we see now is a lot about building agents and then also being able to talk to your data. Whereas before you basically had to have a PhD in writing code. Whereas now you don't need to have that anymore. You can basically just talk to your data because AI is making that possible, right? And I think that's a big game changer. So we're making data accessible to everybody, democratizing data, basically what we're saying, right? Because now everybody can talk to the data, not just the people doing SQL and Python and so forth.
Democratizing, that's a buzzword, but it's 2 years ago, Christian. You need to find the new ones now. Generative is the new one. It's not meaning the same thing. Generative is basically like high agency.
Yeah.
It's like, so when you're hiring for someone, you need to have that. They need to have, they're not high agency. No, that's 2025 early. Yeah. Now they have to have. They need to be generative.
Yeah.
That's the key
thing.
So before we wrap up, like, is there anything that you felt like we haven't talked about that we should touch upon?
I think we cover a lot of Meltwater, at least, probably more than I thought we would.
We'll see. We're gonna get reached out from the Melt Warriors later and be like, we built you guys. What like you're a pretty big podcast guy. You like you read some stuff. What is there any recommendations for AEs or what's your favorite podcast or most gifted book?
Yeah,
UFC now, is that what you're still into that?
QFC now?
UFC.
Oh, UFC? Not as much as I used to. No, that's
testosterone level has gone down with age.
Exactly. Yeah, and I have significantly less time to wake up at early and watch that, right? Because now I wake up at 6, but then it's with a purpose. So
purpose of changing nappies.
Yeah, I would say book. Never Split the Difference. is a good book about negotiating that I got recommended by a colleague actually, and I read that. That's a really good book. If you're familiar with that, I
Yes,
probably have read it.
if you don't want to read a book, there's you can buy a masterclass, the fancy subscription that is really cool, but you never do anything with it. It's like I'm gonna do all these masterclasses, and it's like, yeah, it feels like Netflix, but it's education.
Yeah.
But you never spend enough time to actually do all the work there.
Okay.
But Chris Voss is the guy, and he has a good masterclass class there.
Former FBI hostage negotiator, right?
Exactly.
Which is basically sales.
Yeah, it's definitely sales. I think some of the things is a little bit harsh from his side, but one of the main things that I took with me from the masterclass, I didn't read the book, was instead of looking, like we're sitting across from each other and trying to negotiate, like we're sitting on the same side of the table where the problem is in the middle. Yeah. Like it's, I think that was a good nugget. Yeah.
But other than that, with 2 kids under 1.5 years, I don't read that many books at the moment.
It's so hectic. I feel you. Cool. Then thank you, Christian. You had 2 open spots that in your team?
No, we just hired them actually. So we're just waiting for them to start. We just hired another SE and an architect. So we are slowly starting to build up the team in more than just sales functions. So we're gonna add supporting functions such as architects that sits with our customers. So that's pretty exciting.
But if you're a high generative person, you should reach out to you where?
On LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Nice. You have a nice profile picture there as well. That's,
it's a couple of years old. Yeah. Is that what you're alluding to?
I wasn't, but I clearly hit the nerve there.
I met someone the other day. It's like, you don't look like your picture. I'm like, that's not a compliment. Or is it now? It's not.
It's not. It's not. I can tell you. Cool, Christian. That's the pod.
All right. Thank you.